guys wanted more FNAF lore, so today we're reacting to, well, more FNAF lore by FNAF, and today we're reacting to the original story of FNAF Security Breach, which surprisingly is a game that I haven't played, but I've watched a ton of playthroughs of this game. I did, however, play the last FNAF game, and that was really, really fun for me and also very, very terrifying. But I'd love to be able to play this game someday. But I know somewhat of the lore of this game, right? I know about a Gregory or Evan or whatever the heck his name was supposed to be, right? So, like, you know, I know enough. So let's just watch it. Let me get a refresher from this video. Okay, it's been a while. So let me see what FNAF has to say about FNAF. That's gonna get very confusing.
I had a specific story for this in mind. Okay, for Security Breach, I really did. And it is very different than the one that got in the game. And I think a part of that is the way that I conveyed that to Steel Wool.
So as we're building the game, I get an email from Scott. It says, hey, put this stuff in the game, examine it as a producer would do. And I said, I have no idea what any of this means. He goes, yeah, put it in the game. Don't worry, I know.
Scott Cawthon is super secretive when it comes to the lore of Five Nights at Freddy's, and in order to keep everything a secret, he didn't tell Steelwool the story of Security Breach. Instead, he only gave them pieces of the story he was trying to tell.
I was trying to tell Steelwool to do specific things throughout the game, have specific characters do certain things, meanwhile not telling them what the story plot was.
Because of this, Steelwool, in an effort to flesh out the game, started filling in the blanks themselves.
That didn't work out very well because they got all of these pieces and they thought it was their job to connect them in a way that made sense.
So what we got on launch day was a game that featured the pieces of Scott's original story and the story that Steelwool created to fill in the blanks.
And so really what you ended up having were the same pieces but telling completely different stories.
This whole situation is fascinating to me.
Wait, that's actually kind of cool, actually, when you really think about it. I did not know that, dude. This is a fascinating video already. Dude, we're like a minute in, and I'm already locked the fuck in.
I spent the last few months researching and analyzing Security Breach in order to find Scott's pieces of the game, all in an effort to figure out Scott's original story for Security Breach. Let's get started. The first thing we need to do is find the pieces of Security Breach that belong to Scott. And there's actually a couple we already know about. Right before Security Breach released in December of 2021, Dawko did an interview with Steelwool Studios, where J-Top and Ray revealed that most of the arcade skins in the game came from Scott and his team.
One thing that you've already called out, like in videos, so far, is noticing the arcade skins in the background.
Yes.
There are a lot.
There's a lot.
And the majority of them came from Scott. And he's got a team of artists, right?
This is important because not only do the arcade machines have references to every corner of the FNAF franchise, a lot of them also show GGY at the top of the leaderboards. This ends up being a major part of the story that we will come back to later. The next piece of Scott's original story actually comes from Scott himself. In the interview with Dawko, Scott revealed that in—
Wait, so like, was that like supposed to like signify that Gregory— I don't even know what I'm thinking. I'm gonna watch the video, okay? Because like I don't even know where I was going with that, right? Like maybe Gregory just loves playing games, for all I know.
His version of the story, Burn Trap was never supposed to move.
When it comes to Burn Trap, originally Burn Trap was never supposed to move. He was supposed to just be something you saw in the corners, or like if you were walking past machinery, you might be able to peek in between two things and see him in the corner or propped up against a wall, almost like some kind of decaying movie prop.
This is one of many things that Scott revealed in this interview, so I'll be referring back to this interview throughout the video. The next piece of Scott's original story that I'm going to include are the Tales from the Pizzaplex books. While I don't think they're in the same continuity as the games, I do think Scott was using them to point us in the right direction after Security Breach. So I think it's fair to use them at least as supporting evidence. So far, we have a decent amount of pieces, but
using the books though as like, I guess like a way to connect the story it's really tough, right? Because like I feel like the books' lore is so different. You know what I mean? like from the rest of the FNAF universe, but like I guess in a sense though, it does help connect some pieces.
Those ones were actually the easy ones for me to figure out. These next pieces are definitely the biggest ones and required a lot more research. In my hunt to figure out what parts of Security Breach belong to Scott, my biggest breakthrough came from a website called voices.com. If you don't know already, back when Scott was making the FNAF games on his own, he used voices.com to find and hire voice actors. This is how he found most, if not all, of the voice actors for his games, including for Security Breach. This is interesting because even though Scott was no longer making the games, he still personally chose and worked with some of the voice actors for Security Breach. I say some because in my research, I found that out of all of the voice actors in Security Breach, Scott himself only hired 3 of them using voices.com. So by figuring out what voice actors Scott personally worked with.
Wait, so Scott chose specifically 3 out of the like all the voice actors in the game. Why would he specifically want to like, you know, hire? Well, I guess maybe he didn't want to specifically hire 3. These are just the 3 that he had hired before he had stopped working on the game and then gave it up to Steel Wool.
We can figure out what parts of the story likely belong to him. According to
Music Man, that's my best guess. He had to have hired a voice actor for Music Man. Does Music Man even have a voice in this game? Or does he just exist?
Voices.com, the first voice actor that Scott hired for Security Breach was Matthew Curtis. And what's interesting about this is that Matthew's voice doesn't even show up in the game. It shows up in the trailer for the game. Matthew was hired around January 28th, 2021, 1 month before the first gameplay trailer for Security Breach. In this trailer, we heard this voice for the first time.
When I first found you, you were nothing. You will do as I say. You will bring me what I want.
This was the first and the last time we heard from this character, and it turns out that even Matthew himself had no idea what character he was voicing. When a fan asked him if the character was William Afton, he responded, "Honestly, I don't know. I was never given a character name, but was told to expect more to do as the character in the future. It never panned out." This is yet another example of how secretive Scott was being about the story. Judging by Scott's review on Matthew's page saying, "Great working with Matthew, super fast turnaround," I am fully convinced that all of the voice lines in this trailer were written by Scott. And on top of that, even the style of this trailer is
Wait, so like, was he supposed to be William Afton though? Because like that does seem like something that William Afton would say. And I mean, when I watched the trailer and the memories that I have of the trailer, it feels like that would have been William Afton as well. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't make sense for it to be anyone else, right? So like that's so intriguing to me.
very similar to how Scott used to make his trailers back in the day.
Scott Trainer!
It's just like an old FNAF trailer. I'm gonna cry. It's just like an old FNAF trailer. In my opinion, it seems like Scott was heavily involved in the making of this trailer, but to be fair, Matthew isn't the only one speaking in the trailer. We also get some lines from
the trailer did go hard though. I will have to say Security Breach's trailer is honestly one of the best goddamn FNAF trailers out there. Like, genuinely speaking. I would take a break from watching this to watch it, but like, I mean, you could go watch it on your own if you haven't seen it.
Nessa, voiced by Heather Masters.
Gregory, we can get you out of here. You and me together.
Even though there's no proof that Heather was also hired using voices.com, she's already been working with Scott for years at this point, so I don't think he would need to use voices.com to hire her. So I think it's safe to assume that if Matthew's lines were written by Scott, Heather's lines probably were too. So the first gameplay trailer of Security Breach is officially deemed a Scott piece of the story, but that's not all. We still have 2 voice actors left that were hired by Scott using voices.com, and they are easily the most important. According to voices.com, the final 2 voice actors that Scott hired for Security Breach were Leah Voicey and Penny Balfour, 2 of the therapists from the retro CDs. As you probably know, the therapy CDs are the most lore-filled part of the game, so the fact that they could have been 100% written by Scott would be a huge reveal. So I needed to make sure that I was right about this. Scott could have easily hired and worked with all of the voice actors for Security Breach, and only used voices.com to find.
Yeah, wow. So the fact that he hired the William Afton person, if we're going with that like guess, for the trailer, and the therapist people for the voice recordings would mean that he definitely did probably work on the most important aspects of the game before he left it, right? Which would, if true, be a huge goddamn reveal here right now. That is a good theory. That is a good theory. You know what, FNAF, you have my attention, and I'm locked in right now. I'm here to learn. I'm here to learn what you think.
And some of them. So, in order to figure this out, I watched every single interview, panel, and Q&A from every voice actor in Security Breach to learn who hired them and who they specifically worked with, Scott or Steel Wool. Here's what I found. Martis Fedek, who voices Gregory, Vanny, and Roxy, has mentioned being hired by Steel Wool and also working directly with Steel Wool.
I met somebody who ended up then later coming on board with Steel Wool Studios. He asked me to audition for Roxanne and Gregory.
It's really cool working with the Steel Wool guys because it's easy to be comfortable working with them.
Yeah.
You know, you met them. Like,
yeah, Steel Wool are amazing.
The same goes for Cameron Miller, who voices Monty.
I was doing things on stage. My director is actually married to one of the producers at Steel Wool. He goes, well, actually, we have this game if you want to audition for it.
When it comes to Kellen Goff, who voices Glamrock Freddy and Sun and Moon, things are slightly different.
I'm sorry, the voice of Glamrock Freddy voices Sun and Moon. Thank you for the 200 bits, by the way, Goth Girl fan. What the fuck? What the... my voice of Freddy voices Sun and Moon?
Kellen has stated that Scott personally hired him to voice Glamrock Freddy, but after he got the job, Scott sent him to work directly with Steel Wool.
Then I see this alligator. Maybe I could ask Scott if he's holding auditions for that one. He responded saying, actually, I had something else in mind for you. Would you like to read for Freddy? And I sent over what would be the first words of Glamrock Freddy, and he said, yep, that's it. I'm going to connect you with the Steel Wool guys.
I couldn't find any information about Heather Masters, who voices Vanessa in Glamrock Chica, but since she's also a veteran of the series, I think it's safe to assume she went through the same thing as Kellen. Hired on by Scott, but then was sent to work with Steel Wool. So basically, any line in the game that came from the Glamrocks, daycare attendant, Vanessa, Vanny, or Gregory were likely, for the most part, not entirely written by Scott, since all of the voice actors for these characters recorded their lines directly with Steel Wool. That then leaves Leah Voicey and Penny Balfour.
Okay, but Scott liked them, so he hired them, quote unquote, and then sent them over there, which is kind of still cool if you really think about it, right? Like, it's still cool.
From the therapy CDs. Maybe Scott did the same thing with them as he did with Kellen. Hired them on and then sent them to work with Steel Wool to record their lines. But that's not the case, because after scrolling through 5 years worth of reviews on Leah Voicey's profile, I found a review left by Scott where he said Leah did great and nailed it on the first take. This heavily implies that he was the one that worked directly with Leah and Penny on the therapy CDs. This is in addition to Scott saying Matthew Curtis had a super fast turnaround and Penny Balfour was a pleasure to work with. I am fully convinced that the therapy CDs were written by Scott and are a piece of his original story for Security Breach. What's funny about this is that the therapy CDs were a huge reason Security Breach was so confusing. But now with this new information, we know why it was so confusing. When the game first came out, it's
because those were the pieces that were left in the game because of Scott, and then Steel Wool didn't really know what to do with it because they just had Scott hand them that, and they were like, we have to now somehow make a game around this. That's crazy.
Played through it normally and got all of the endings. This was, for the most part, the Steel Wool portion of the game. Every voice line you heard was recorded with Steel Wool in the room, and most of the story beats you experienced were likely written by Steel Wool as well. It wasn't until you took that extra step at the end of the game to find and listen to the CDs that the story started to get confusing. This is the moment Scott's original story started clashing with Steel Wool's. So now that we have all of Scott's pieces of the game, let's figure out the story he was trying to tell.
Dude, this is crazy. This is fucking insane to me, by the way. The fact that FNAF, the guy on my screen right now, FNAF himself, they sat here and was like, I want to find out what that original story is because it's completely different. I would have never thought about that. I'm not like like I'm not insane enough to even, or smart enough, I should say, to even figure out that there were two separate stories going on there. You know what I mean? Like I'm just a little dumb. And also, I just realized I haven't taken my goddamn meds yet, so I should do that before we keep watching the rest of this video.
The main thing I learned while piecing this together is that the therapy CDs are the foundation of Scott's story. Every single Scott piece of the game ties back into those CDs in some way, and here's how. There are 16 CDs, with 8 of them being therapy sessions with Vanessa and the other 8 being therapy sessions with Gregory. In Vanessa's CDs, there's really only 2 big topics they touch on: Vanessa's traumatic childhood and a conversation she's been having with someone on her work computer. Let's start with her childhood. We learned that Vanessa has a dad named Bill, and when the therapist brings him up, Vanessa immediately gets uncomfortable.
I feel like I know your dad too, Bill, right? I'm sorry, what did you say?
I try to do what I'm supposed to do.
We then learn about how Vanessa was manipulated by her dad when she was young.
I'm talking about the custody battle between your mum and your dad. Your dad didn't play fair, did he? He used to make your mum look bad in court. I suppose I don't need you to tell me it felt bad to have a parent scare you into saying things that weren't true. He manipulated you. It wasn't your fault.
Vanessa's dad forced her to lie about her mom in court so he could maintain custody of her. Vanessa's backstory is something people didn't really talk about for a while after the game came out. And this is because with her dad being named Bill, which is short for William, him being pure evil and manipulating his kid, and Vanessa's name in FNAF AR being Vanessa A, it seems that Vanessa might actually be an Afton. This was almost immediately written off by people because Vanessa didn't really exist in the story until now.
I don't know why it took me this long to figure that out. Am I dumb, bro? Am I dumb? I've watched the FNAF movies. You know what I mean? Like I know this information, right? But like when they were saying Bill just now, I was like, who the fuck is Bill? You know what I mean? Like I know that her dad is William, but like when they said Bill just now, I was like, who the bloody hell is goddamn Bill? I was sitting here like an idiot just now trying to piece it together in my head. I'm glad that he broke it down for me.
Wow. As far as we knew, Afton only had 3 kids, Michael, Elizabeth, and the crying child. But then, 2 years after Security Breach, the FNAF movie came out, featuring a character named Vanessa, who looks exactly like Vanessa in the games, and is the daughter of William Afton. But it doesn't stop there. We get another therapy CD about Vanessa's dad, where the therapist gives her advice on how to deal with her trauma.
Are you talking about your dad? You can't just ignore an issue. You have to face your memory of the experiences and process them so you can let it go, so you don't get triggered anymore.
The therapist tells her to face the memory of her traumatic experiences with her dad so she can process them and let them go. This is the exact same advice Vanessa is given in the FNAF 2 movie.
You remember how I would use my dreams to confront what happened with Garrett? It really helped me a lot. I think it can help you too.
You have to face your memory of the experiences and process them so you can let it go.
I don't think that's a good idea.
I don't like doing that.
She then literally faces the traumatic memories with her dad head on in an...
Wait a second. Whoa. Is FNAF 2 canon to the FNAF lore universe? Is that what I'm learning in real time right now? You know what I mean? Like, I mean, to be fair though, I always said that the ending of that movie felt like it would lead into Security Breach. Right, because I mean, she is wearing like a security outfit and everything, so it feels like we're just heading directly into like the third movie being Security Breach. What the hell was that? I'm so sorry. Was my thought process.
Effort to overcome them. In the games, we learn that Vanessa's dad is extremely possessive of her, with him making her lie in court so he can maintain custody of her. This extremely possessive trait is also something we see from Afton in the movies.
You will always be mine. You shall always be mine.
This is where the first piece of Scott's original story comes into play, and it's something he said in his interview with Dawko. Scott revealed that he told Steelwool to put specific items in specific places.
I was trying to tell Steelwool to do specific things throughout the game. Put specific items in specific places. Have specific characters do certain things.
Well, when it comes to putting specific items in specific places, the only Scott piece of the game that's put in a very specific place are the therapy CDs, which were put in the Afton's living room from sister location. Scott goes on to say this.
In my head, I was thinking, okay, when people find this, they will connect this to this to this, and it will all be revealed.
Maybe he thought when we found the Afton's living room, we'd connect it to the CDs and therefore connect Vanessa and her dad, William, to the Aftons. When Daco interviewed Steelwool, he asked them if there would be any Easter eggs in the game, in which Ray McCaffrey responded,
"Will there be any Easter eggs in Security Breach?"
As we're building the game, I get an email from Scott. It says, hey, put this stuff in the game, examine it as a producer would do, and I say, I have no idea what any of this means. He goes, yeah, put it in the game. Or I know.
To me, it sounds like he's talking about the Afton's living room from sister location and the therapy CDs. Daco specifically asked about
that. Seems very difficult from a producer standpoint. You know what I mean? Like, you're just like, okay, well, you're the original creator of the games. I want to respect your vision. So sure, I don't know what you want me to do with this, but I'll just do it anyway. Right. And I mean, that would explain a lot of other elements of the game. Cause I did watch like playthroughs of Security Breach, and yes, it did feel disjointed in nature in a lot of aspects, but it still had a story there. It still had a story that I personally did like, right? Like I will say, I definitely still enjoyed it. But you know, learning this, it makes a little bit more sense now, right?
Easter eggs, and the Afton living room is a huge Easter egg in the game. But at the same time, the therapy CDs in that room were likely something sent to them by Scott with no explanation.
I have no idea what any of this means. He goes, yeah.
The next huge piece of Scott's original story involves the second topic in Vanessa's therapy CDs, the conversation she's having with someone on her work computer. These conversations are brought up 3 separate times by 3 separate therapists. This is because every time a therapist brings up the conversations, they're swapped out.
A routine check of your online history has revealed that you've spent quite a bit of time with someone in an encrypted conversation. Hi, go ahead, sit down.
I don't know you. What happened to...
Oh, we'll get to know each other in no time.
This happens 4 times over the 16 CDs, totaling 5 different therapists. The first 3 voiced by Michelle Moss, and the final 2 voiced by Leah Voicey and Penny Balfour. The therapists tell Vanessa that whoever she's talking to has hacked into her personal files.
This person who's been sending you messages has been hacking into your personal files too. These are the same files I have here. This person who is contacting you knows a lot about you.
They also tell Vanessa that it looks like this person is manipulating her.
The messages you're getting seem very manipulative in nature.
With that in mind, let's move on to Gregory's therapy CDs. And the thing about Gregory's is that he never actually says anything out loud in any of his 8 CDs.
So you're not talking to me again today. This isn't all that productive, you know.
The only reason we know that these belong to Gregory is because Scott confirmed it in the Tales from the Pizzaplex books. There's also multiple moments in the CD.
So that's where the book comes in. Okay, so, and you know, I take back what I said earlier about, you know, the book's not being like an important source of relevant information because now I'm being proven wrong in real time. But also, to be fair, all right, I feel like the books have also just been, you know, good for other things, like finding out about like the liquid metal? Was that the living metal or something like that, right, in the past and other stuff. That being said, though, like the fact that like the piece of information of it being Gregory being put in the books and us not finding out in the games, it feels like a missed opportunity, right? I feel like Scott should have at least given them that piece of information just so we could have at least figured that out in the game. I say we as if though I was ever going to play this goddamn game knowing full well I wouldn't.
Where the therapist implies that they're talking to a child.
You don't want me to get in trouble, do you? I could be put in the corner for a timeout. Yeah, you think that's funny, huh?
But there's also another way I think Scott intended for us to figure this out, and that's through the next piece of Scott's story, the arcade skins he gave to Steelwool. Like we established earlier, most of the arcade skins for the game came from Scott and his artist. And one thing about the arcade machines is that Gregory is at the top of the leaderboard on a lot of them. This is something we all overlooked until the story GGY from the Tales books was released. In the story GGY, we learned that Gregory is hacking into the arcade machines at the Pizzaplex in order to get the highest scores. And wouldn't you know, one of the main things we learn about Patient 46 is that they're an extremely skilled hacker.
I'm surprised by your knowledge of computers. You're something of a phenom. Do you know what that word means? It means you have unusual skill, like a hacker.
Since Patient 46 never speaks in the therapy CDs, Scott maybe thought we'd figure out their identity by learning that Patient 46 is a hacker and then connecting that to Gregory's absurdly high scores on the arcade machines. Even though it definitely seems far-fetched, I honestly can't think of any other reason Scott would put Gregory at the top of the leaderboards. But anyways, back to Gregory's therapy
that's checking out to me.
After revealing that Gregory is a hacker,
I have no rebuttal to this. It has to check out to me, to be honest with you. Like, do you guys have a rebuttal? I fucking don't. Right?
The therapist brings up an encrypted conversation that Gregory is having with someone.
They say you were in communication with someone. The texts say it looked to them like it was an attempt to manipulate you.
Then the therapist reveals that Gregory wasn't the one being manipulated in these conversations. He was the one doing the manipulating.
The thing is, when I read the communications, I get something different out of them. I don't think you're being manipulated here. I think you're the one doing the manipulating.
So we have Vanessa, who's being manipulated by someone in an encrypted conversation, and then we have Gregory, who is manipulating someone in an encrypted conversation. This is Scott clearly telling us that Gregory is the one communicating with and manipulating Vanessa. Like I said earlier, every time a therapist brought up these encrypted conversations, they were swapped out. And in the Tales books, Scott revealed that this was because of Gregory. Gregory would lure each therapist to the Pizzaplex to have them killed. This is something that Scott heavily hinted towards in the therapy CDs as well. In the therapy CDs, Gregory is being told that the therapists are showing up dead, and he doesn't care.
Apparently, all 3 of your former therapists have gone missing. One of them was found dead. That doesn't seem to upset you. Well, then I guess I'll go ahead and tell you that the woman's body was pretty messed up. That doesn't bother you either?
This screams to me that Gregory was fully under the control of Glitchtrap, and this was basically confirmed in the books as well. Gregory's nickname in the books is literally the wizard's most favored apprentice. So not only is he under the control of Glitchtrap, he's talking to and manipulating Vanessa on the behalf of Glitchtrap. Scott brings up these conversations so many times in the therapy CDs, so they must be important, which leads into our next question.
How does Gregory get under the control of Glitchtrap though? Like how does that happen? When would that have happened? And like, when do these therapy sessions take place per se? Right? I mean, this obviously I guess would have happened before the events of the story of the game, right? Is my best guess. And then that's why when we're going through the game, we're finding them per se. So, but still, like, what? Huh? I shouldn't question it too much. I'm gonna keep watching.
What were Gregory and Vanessa talking about in these conversations? Well, what if I told you that we've already heard a piece of these conversations 7 years ago? On October 23rd, 2019, we got the Curse of Dreadbear DLC for Help Wanted. In this DLC, we get our first look at the Vanny mask. And if you put it on while at the prize counter, you can hear Vanessa start to have a conversation with someone. In this conversation, she talks about the Vanny costume that she's creating.
Yes, I hear you. There's no miscommunication. I understand. No one suspects anything. Yes, I have it. I made it myself. I think you would like it.
This is the conversation that's brought up multiple times in the therapy CDs where Gregory is manipulating Vanessa. I know this because Vanessa is also confronted about this Vanny costume in the therapy CDs. But once that happens, she says,
"What? It looks like you were shopping for a costume." What was that? Did you say the costume is a secret?
I can't talk about this. He said he would always be watching. He could be here, or there, or anywhere in between.
On top of all of that, after doing a little bit of research, I found that the voice actor for these specific lines from Help Wanted, Jesse Tang, was also hired by and worked directly with Scott just like the therapists in the CDs, with him saying Jessica was terrific, she took direction well, and turnaround was very fast. So the idea that this conversation from Help Wanted and the therapy CDs are connected would make sense considering they were both directly written by Scott. These conversations were a huge part of Scott's original story, but it doesn't stop there. There's another—
Oh my god. Oh my goodness. Wait, then, okay, hold on. But that still doesn't make sense to me then. Because, like, if Gregory is manipulating her from— No, I'm thinking about this from, like, a different perspective. Because I saw 2019, and then my brain immediately was like, how old would Gregory have been? But then that doesn't make sense, because obviously this is not happening in 2019. This is happening in the 80s or something, whatever the case, right? Like, and the events of that other game are happening at the same time of the events of this game. So then it does make sense. The DLC of that game, sorry, would have happened at the same time as this one, right? Am I making sense? I'm making sense to somebody. Whoever is listening to this right now, you one random person listening, yeah, you. Hey, I hope you're having a wonderful day, by the way. I'm making sense to you.
Piece of security breach that I believe belongs to Scott that we haven't talked about yet. In the therapy CDs, Gregory takes an ink blot test.
I saw some ink blot test results in your file. I like ink blot tests. You want to do one?
Gregory then takes the ink blot and says this.
How about this one? What do you see? You think it's a mask? Like a disguise? You like the idea of being disguised? Disguises let you be sort of invisible, don't they? You can get away with almost anything when you're invisible, can't you? Yeah, you like that idea?
Not only does Gregory see a mask, he specifically added the line, disguises let you be sort of invisible. You can get away with almost anything when you're invisible. Why would Scott include this? Because it directly connects to one of the only times we see Vanny in Security Breach.
What was that?
That is a fountain.
Not the fountain. You didn't see the dancing rabbit lady right in front of us?
No, I did not.
Vanny is literally invisible when she's wearing the Vanny mask.
Yes, I have it. I think you would like it.
You like the idea of being disguised? You can get away with almost anything when you're invisible, can't you?
This is something Scott doubled down on in Ruin. Whenever Cassie puts on the Vanny mask, she literally becomes invisible to the animatronics. And for those people who, rightfully so, say that the Vanny mask and the Vanny costume look completely different, Scott and Steelwool included this scene in Ruin to clear that up.
It's Gregory. Hey, she's wearing my mask.
This was very clearly shoehorned into the game to answer the question of, is the Vanny mask and the Vanny costume the same thing? And it turns out that even though they look different, they are the same thing. Like we talked about earlier, Scott told Steelwool to put specific items in specific places in Security Breach.
Okay, so it was obviously, I mean, he designed one of them years prior to the other. And so obviously with like the other game coming out years later, I mean, a redesign was bound to happen at some point, right? So like, yeah, I guess in that regard, you know, I'm gonna give it to him, right? For it to be the same thing. But that's cool. That's cool. That's less confusing. My brain is like low-key melting. It's also realistically 2:19 in the morning right now as I'm watching this. So like, it's cool, but also confusing and not at the same time.
But he also told them to do specific things throughout the game and have specific characters do certain things. I think this is what he was talking about. Scott telling Steelwool to put this specific scene in the game makes sense, considering it directly links to what he wrote.
Yeah, because I always kind of wondered whenever I saw playthroughs of this game, why the fuck was she prancing around invisible there? Because that literally just made sense and didn't connect to anything else. At least I thought, right? It connected to nothing else. But then now I think that it does. Obviously, it does connect to the tape, right? But then how does that connect to the rest of Steelwool's story? in that regard.
In the therapy CDs. So now that we know that Gregory was fully under the control of Glitchtrap, a lot of pieces start falling into place. Gregory the hacker is the one who hacked into Vanessa's personal files.
It means you have unusual skill, like a hacker. This person who's been sending you messages has been hacking into your personal files too.
He did this to keep tabs on Vanessa's sessions, to make sure that she's not saying too much about their conversations. We also learn in the CDs that Gregory completely lied about having a traumatic childhood.
None of what you said in your file about your parents was true. The truth is, you had great parents, a great childhood. Why did you lie?
I think he lied about his past so he could have a reason to meet with the therapist. He's actually a normal kid that had a great childhood, but by pretending he has childhood trauma, he's able to get in with the same therapist as Vanessa. And if he finds out that Vanessa told them too much, he'd kill them off. In Vanessa's last 2 therapy tapes, we learn that she's about to be transferred to work at the Pizzaplex.
I understand you'll be transferring to a different location soon.
After Vanessa was transferred, we learned that Gregory was spotted talking to Vanny at the Pizzaplex.
I have this still shot the text pulled from the security footage that recorded you in the Pizzaplex. You're talking to someone or something. What are those things? They almost look like rabbit ears.
After only speaking through encrypted conversations, Vanessa and Gregory are now at the Pizzaplex talking in person. This was obviously supposed to be the big twist of the game. Gregory wasn't this random kid who just so happened to get trapped in the Pizzaplex. He was working with Vanny the whole time. And Scott actually had this planned since the beginning. Earlier, we figured out that Scott personally hired and worked with the voice actors for the first gameplay trailer for Security Breach. And you can hear presumably Glitchtrap say this.
You will do as I say. You will bring me what I want. And if you fail me, then you will. Both of you burn!
The both of you line was always confusing, but knowing what we know now, both of you was referencing Vanessa and Gregory, who were both under the control of Glitchtrap. Gregory being under the control of Glitchtrap is obviously a big twist. But there's another piece of Scott's original story that I believe was going to be a bigger twist. In Help Wanted, one of the only lines of dialogue that Glitchtrap has is this. This is him repeating a line that was said by Tape Girl.
Hello? Can you hear me?
This led people to believe that Scott had some version of the Mimic AI in mind since Help Wanted. And I think that's entirely possible, considering what we learned from the therapy CDs. There's one...
Okay. But if Gregory was under the control of Glitchtrap the entire time, when we're playing as Gregory, was that like when he like broke control of like the control of Glitchtrap, and then that's why he's trying to escape, right? Is that what happened? How did he break that control? Then is then my next question. I need to I need to, you know what I need to do? I need to just play the game. I just need to play it's been a while, and I just need to play the game is what I need to do. Right? I'm too scared to do that though, is the problem. And like I played Secret of the Mimic. I loved Secret of the Mimic. That game was absolutely fucking fantastic and brilliant. And honest to God, you know, I keep linking it in like every video or one of these like FNAF reactions that I do. That game was good, right? But outside of that one though, I probably need to play Security Breach now.
One line from the therapy CDs that I haven't seen many people talk about, and it's something the therapist says to Gregory.
Is it the electronics you like? I saw in your file that you have developed software programs that talk to you in repeat phrases, right? The program asks you questions and prompts you for responses.
What? Gregory has developed software programs that talk to him and repeat phrases. If we take this line literally, it seems to be heavily implying that Gregory created some version of what we now know as the Mimic AI. Obviously, this did not end up being the case because we have Edwin, but when Scott originally wrote these CDs, could that have been the plan? It's definitely not impossible, especially since Scott has explored this concept before.
Yeah, that would have been insane if he wanted Gregory to have created the Mimic AI. You know what I mean? Like that would, to be fair, I like the story that they came up with in the end of how the Mimic was created, right? Like the Secret of the Mimic being like the Mimic was one of the first creations way back in the day, from even before I guess Freddy's was a PCR or whatever. I do like that story, I think, a lot better than Gregory creating it.
What we've learned over the years is that sometimes Scott will introduce a concept in a previous book or game, and then years later reuse it for something else. For example, the entire concept and story of the Mimic was explored by Scott before FNAF even existed in Chipper and Sons Lumber Co. Quote, there comes a time when all a beaver's rage and sorrow are poured into something, and it becomes stronger than himself. It reminds me of the time that I built an exact duplicate of myself with fur and everything, but the silly thing didn't realize that it was a lumber bot and tried to take over the place. I had to whack it with a shovel and bury it. Can you imagine a robot thinking he was the real thing? Ha, bleep bloop. Whoa, excuse me. Obviously, Scott has themes and story ideas that he's been fascinated by for a long time, including the idea of a rogue AI program, and the themes surrounding Gregory are no exception to that. The concept of a child prodigy creating an AI that was built to talk and repeat phrases is another idea Scott has explored before. In the Silver Eyes trilogy, Charlie is a child prodigy who invents an AI that talks to itself and learns on its own. She put the AI into
Bro, why are these kids creating like fucking Chat GPT, bro? Like what is going on here? Like why am I now learning as I watch these FNAF videos about the kids who are slowly, you know, becoming goddamn motherfucking like Sam Altman, right? Like this is insane. Like the more I learn about the lore of this franchise, like Scott cooked when he created this universe. Like we all know that, right? And like it's so crazy to me that I wrote off the books now, and I know some of you are probably mad for me like trying to say that the books didn't really matter, but I guess the reality of the situation is that they obviously do, to more of a degree than like myself and other people definitely might think that they do. You know what I mean?
Skeleton heads that repeat, hello, you, I, you are, am I? When Charlie's friend asks her what she's programming them to do, she responds, I'm not exactly programming them to do anything. I'm helping them to learn on their own. This is the one and only time this is brought up in the entire book series, which makes me think that this was Scott testing out the idea of an extremely talented kid creating a rogue AI program. Although he never expanded upon it in the Silver Eyes, I think he could have been picking it back up with Gregory. But there's one detail that could make or break this whole explanation. If Gregory was already under the control of Glitchtrap when he made the program, Glitchtrap obviously made him create it, and I think that probably is the case. The therapist says that while Gregory was talking to the program, it sounded like someone started responding to him.
When I study this, it sounds like there is someone else responding to you. Who is it?
I think this program was how he would communicate with Glitchtrap or Vanessa. Although that line about Gregory creating essentially the Mimic AI is super weird. And until we get an explanation, those are the two possible ways I think it could be interpreted.
So Glitchtrap would have created an AI way to communicate with itself and Vanessa, or Gregory was just smart enough to create the Mimic AI. One of those things is true. Both of those things are confusing.
Now it's time to talk about arguably the biggest thing we learned about Scott's original story. Burntrap was never supposed to move, and based on what Scott is saying, it seems like he was almost supposed to be an Easter egg. Like if you look between two objects, you'll see Burntrap just chilling in the corner. Scott said that Burntrap did have a specific purpose, but he decided not to share it.
And you never fully understood what his purpose was. And he had a very specific purpose, and I'm not going to say what that purpose was, but realistically, he never moved.
So in order to understand what Burntrap is, we first need to understand what Glitchtrap is. There is a lot of debate about if Glitchtrap is the actual spirit of William Afton, or if it's just the Mimic program mimicking William Afton. And I think it's a little bit of both. In the Doco interview, Scott actually shared his thoughts on Glitchtrap by saying,
I love the character. but I can't help my inclinations to lean sci-fi. So anything that involves possession of AI or possession of machines or circuitry, that I love that sort of thing. So I love the idea of glitch trap.
I think Scott was being pretty clear when he said that glitch trap is the result of a spirit possessing an AI program. And I think that AI is the mimic program, and the spirit possessing it is William Afton. In Help Wanted, it's very clear that glitch trap wanted out of the VR game.
It wants to escape through someone plugged into this game. That's, you know.
And then the person who was plugged in was William at the time, wasn't it?
He wanted to re-enter the physical world, and at the time, his only way of doing that was through Vanessa.
Oh, never mind.
But now that glitch trap was successful,
I look so stupid, I'm so sorry.
Successfully controlling Vanessa, he had a new goal, and this goal can be heard in Scott's security breach trailer.
You will do as I say. You will bring me what I want. And if you fail me, then you will. Both of you burn!
He wants Vanessa and Gregory to bring him something.
Well,
and I think that something
well.
is what we see at the end of the trailer.
There is more going on here than you realize.
Glitch Trap wants a physical body to inhabit, but not just any physical body, his body. The Pizzaplex just so happens to be built on top of the FNAF 6 pizzeria, where Afton's corpse lies. This shot with the purple lighting and everything feels like it's screaming at us that Afton is back. I genuinely think Burn Trap was, and maybe still is, actually William Afton's corpse.
And he just wanted his own body back. Okay, that makes sense to me. That actually makes sense to me. So then William Afton possesses AI possibly being the Mimic, if the Mimic story is still canon of being the Mimic being created by the guy that created it in Secret and Mimic way back. Then in that case, that would then mean that, Gregory obviously broke free, tried saving Vanessa so they could escape, yada, yada. William Afton, guy from trailer, was like, yo, we gotta fucking, you gotta bring my body, or I'm gonna kill you both. Obviously, that doesn't happen. Where does the girl come in from the DLC? Right, Ruin? Because wasn't her like dad like a worker or something that happened? I'm vaguely remembering now.
And the reason we were supposed to see glimpses of him propped up against a wall and lifeless is because Vanessa hasn't put Glitch Trap into it yet. Seeing a lifeless Burn Trap as an Easter egg might have acted as a hint towards what Vanessa was up to at the Pizzaplex.
There is more going on here than you realize.
This is what I think Scott's original idea for Burn Trap was. Is it still true? I honestly think so, and that's because of what we see in Help Wanted 2. In one of the endings, we see Glitch Trap's hand coming out of the charging pod in the exact same way Burn Trap's did, obviously connecting Glitch Trap to Burn Trap. And then in the Princess Quest ending, a giant Vanny crushes Glitch Trap in her hands. Help Wanted 2 kind of felt like the we're sorry for bringing Afton back again, so let's get rid of him real quick game. In my interview with Steelwool Studios, J-Top made it very clear that this was the end for Glitch Trap.
This is, the end of Glitch Trap.
So it is the end of Glitch Trap. Squished. Gone. Yep. Bye-bye. This really feels like them moving on from the William Afton part of Glitch Trap, so we can now focus on the Mimic AI part of Glitch Trap. What's interesting to me about the things
Wait, so now the villain is just the Mimic? Isn't the Mimic like a kid though? Like wasn't that its whole thing? It was mimicking both its creator, and then it imparts also a kid. So then I don't know. I don't know how evil we can make that thing.
I found while researching for this video is that it all could still be true. Things like Gregory being under the control of Glitch Trap and working with Vanny, Vanessa maybe being an Afton, Gregory creating a version of the Mimic AI, and Burn Trap literally being Afton's corpse reanimated by Glitch Trap are all things that could still be true in the current story. But my biggest takeaway from this is that Security Breach could really benefit from a solid prequel. Imagine a game where we learn how Gregory fell under the control of of Glitch Trap,
That would
and
be
how
nice.
Gregory broke free from Glitch Trap's control, with
That
the game
would be
ending
nice.
right where Security Breach begins. I
Yup.
want you to know that I could be wrong about literally everything I talked about in this video. Scott is the only one who knows what story he was trying to tell, so
That's true.
don't take everything I said here as fact. Despite the communication issues surrounding Security Breach, the story that was presented in that game is the story we've got. And the most recent games seem to prove that Scott and Steelwool are back on the same page.
You know, me and Steelwool got together. We were like, look, all that matters now is making things right by the fan base. And anything that we do going forward that continues that story or has those same themes, I think we're just going to be in a much, much better situation to continue on.
I just thought it would be fun to try and figure out for myself what Scott's original story for Security Breach was. Subscribe if you enjoyed, and thanks for watching.
I'm gonna be honest with y'all, that shit was confusing as fuck, but that was also very entertaining as hell. I genuinely don't know what to think, except for the fact that, like, I would like another FNAF game in the same style as Secret of the Mimic, which I know is a better style of Security Breach. I don't want to play Security Breach because I'm still too scared. The fact that I even got through Secret of the Mimic is surprising enough. You know what I mean? And yeah, I think like Secret of the Mimic for me was easy enough to understand when I played that game. To be fair though, I was listening to like some of the audio CD tapes or whatever in that game. I didn't listen to everything. You know what I mean? And maybe we'll watch like a video on that game here if you guys are interested in that, right? Because like I don't think I know everything, but I feel like I know somewhat of the story of that game as well. But like finding out about like the whole Gregory thing, I definitely would, and I do agree, would like to know how Gregory broke free, if Gregory was possessed, if that was actually William Afton, if freaking Vanessa is an Afton, although I think Vanessa is an Afton. I mean, I said it earlier in the video, I always thought that she was, and the movies, they are positioning it as if she is, so therefore I think that we all probably should position her as an Afton, regardless of whatever the case is. This was enjoyable. This was fun. I'm gonna see you guys in the next video. Take care, peace out, have a wonderful night, and if you're watching this at 2:30 in the morning like I am, bye.